What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi Fruit Loop. What you know?
It is cold here and I'm loving it.
It's cold here, and I have to admit that's not the reason I'm wearing this beanie. I'm having a bad hair day, and I was over it.
We had somebody shared with us the other day, and I forget the name, I'm sorry, but they were doing patrol with their kids' school, and it was like 8 degrees.
Oh yeah, it's freezing, and my daughter does patrol in the mornings, and yeah, she doubled up today. She had on like leggings and then her jeans, and yeah, so I can't handle all that. So we just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Two Cool T-shirt Quilts. Go to twocooltshirtquilts.com slash pretty lies and alibis. And we're hoping tomorrow night we can still do the true crime feud. My aunt is being readmitted to the hospital right now, so it just kind of depends on what happens there. But the plan right now is still 7:30 tomorrow night.
Yep.
And one person, if they choose the winning team, has a chance to win a t-shirt pillow from Two Cool T-shirt Quilts. So go check it out and start planning just in case you win. All right, so we're going to jump right into Chandler Halderson day 3. We're kind of running a day behind, but we may try to catch up this weekend or something. So we're just going to jump right in. Yesterday was a really good day of testimony. First, we heard from Dulce Melender. I'm not sure if I got that last name right, but that's Kat's mom, which is Chandler's girlfriend. Kat is the girlfriend. And so, first off, we heard from her mom yesterday. Bless her heart. She was very nervous. She was really soft spoken, and she went to go get a drink of water and almost grabbed the hand sanitizer. That's how nervous she was.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I really liked Dulce and her partner and Kat yesterday. I think they all seem really sweet, and man, they just got taken by this kid. So she said that Kat and Chandler had been dating for around 2 years. And Chandler, as far as she knew, was working during the time they dated. He had told her that he was a diver with the Department of Natural Resources. And then he also had this second job at this insurance company. And as far as college goes, he was telling her that he only needed one credit to graduate. So when he got this new job at SpaceX, this fake job, I hate talking as if this stuff's real because it's not, but she took him out to eat to celebrate. And in May or between May and July, look, this kid's got the worst case of diabetes I've ever seen.
He's a pathological liar.
It is oozing out of every, yeah. I mean, it's so hard to watch this stuff. And then you see the effect on like poor Kat. She's been in
Now,
a
you know
relationship.
what? These top people, he could pass a lie detector test.
That's scary.
Yep. I guarantee he could because he's lied so much that he believes what he's saying.
But the thing is, today has been watching the police interview, and you see that nervousness. You really, because I think he knows at this point, but we'll get there. So, between May and July before the murder, she knew that he had told them that he had got this job at SpaceX in Florida. And he said that he was getting a Tesla and he would make all this good money. And he showed her an apartment on his phone that he supposedly had put this down payment on for him and Kat to live in. And he asked for her permission for Kat to move to Florida. And the mom said she was worried because Kat's her only daughter. So the weekend of the 4th, this is when the murders happened. They had plans to get together at the farm to swim and eat. And Kat's mom lives there part-time with her partner. And she says the farm is like paradise. It's peaceful and green with flowers. And she got very emotional. And I understand that because he brought this evil to this beautiful place that is a sanctuary.
Well, plus two, I mean, you think about it. He's killed 2 people.
Yeah.
He ends up leaving body parts in your woods, and he's dating your daughter.
Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, I'm sure she's all this scares her to death and to look back. So she said that Chandler talked about his injury and he was acting okay. He was just a little quiet. So the next day, she knows Chandler went back to the farm because Kat had texted her and said that he was coming. So she goes to the farm and she was worried and she got really emotional and they had to take a break. she was a little embarrassed because her partner likes to be, as her fiance likes to be in the pool without a top on. And so they eventually get in the pool together and that comes up. But Chandler had never been to the farm without Kat before. So when Kat's mom got there, Chandler was talking to her fiance and she said he looked tired and sleepy. He just didn't look okay to her. And Chandler had told the fiance that he didn't get the SpaceX job because his brother got sick and then he had his fall. So they were asking how to help because he seemed down and they were worried. So Chandler just excused himself and said he was going swimming and he went by himself. So he was supposed to go to a doctor's appointment. And as a mom, she said she was upset with his mom for not being there at that time, not knowing what had happened. So they went to check on him after about 30 minutes in the pool. And they have this little lawnmower that they ride along the farm to get from place to place. So she kind of got cracked up when she was talking about them riding the lawnmower. So they didn't see him swimming. So they turned and saw that his car was backed into that grassy area. And she thought maybe he was asleep because the trunk was open. So they drove by the car and they looked inside and they said they saw something metal that looked like a ramp. And she didn't see Chandler in the car or anywhere around them. So her fiance was a little upset about that, wondering where he was. So they eventually just went to the pool. And while they were in the pool, they saw Chandler around the side of the barn. And he asked if he could get in the pool with them. And Kat's mom said no because her fiance didn't have her top on. Chandler got in the pool anyway, and he had shorts on and his shirt was off. And she said he kept looking kind of out towards the horizon once he got in the pool. And he was kind of going underwater and like splashing water on his body. So she thought he had just went for a walk. And his plans for later was to go to her house because Kat was getting or go to Kat's house because she was getting his favorite dinner, which apparently is McDonald's. And they were in the pool with Chandler for around 15 minutes. He didn't swim or anything. And she said she was relieved when he got out and left. And so he went to his car, and Chandler had told them that his parents were at the cabin, even though they were already dead. And unfortunately, his dad's torso is in their woods. So she said on Sunday the 4th, he was okay, but more quiet and looked sleepy. Then the day he came there alone, he acted way different than usual. So on the 6th, that next day after he had been there alone, every week they go to Buffalo Wild Wings and they have this buy one, get one on the wings. So it's a weekly thing that they do. And she said that night, he said he was worried because he hadn't heard from his parents yet. And he was acting really tired and sad. And Kat's mom had not met Bart and Krista. So on Cross, they asked if her fiance was topless, and they made a deal out of it. They asked if it makes her uncomfortable, and she said, yeah, that's why she got emotional on the stand. And also, Chandler came in the pool. And the defense asked if she was uncomfortable with Chandler coming in the pool, and she said it was just all really weird. And she said Chandler is quiet, but Kat kind of brings him out of his shell.
I mean, I'm thinking the ramp out of the back of the car because there was a trash can in the woods, so he probably rolled that.
Yeah, and they have tire marks that they saw, but they also there was something going in different directions that had been, made the grass lay down because it's notably higher.
Yeah, I saw
the grass and then it goes up high. So Cress, let's talk about her. This is the next witness. This is the fiance of Kat's mom.
So in June of 2021, she didn't spend a lot of time with him, just at get-togethers. Before the weekend of the 4th, he had been to the farm maybe 10 to 12 times, but he was never by himself. She was told about the fake jobs. She says his demeanor was off, kind of weird. She asked how he felt. He said he's doing the best he can. He had no trouble physically and didn't wear a neck brace. And one of the pictures that we shared on our social media, he's got that neck brace on.
Yeah, that was the Father's Day with Bart's shirt that says like Incredible Dad and it's got Mr. Incredible on it. It just, oh man. And then he's just, you see Mitchell and Bart smiling, and then here's Sourpuss over there with his little fake neck brace on and looking all sad.
Yeah. She had a one-on-one conversation after he ate, and he came up to her asking for her phone number so he could come use the pool. So she gave him her cell number and landline number. And again, she hadn't met Bart or Krista either. July 5th, when he comes alone, the first interaction she had, she opened her window and saw a car in her driveway and didn't recognize it and saw him standing in the driveway. And she said he looked spaced out. She asked if he was okay and asked if he was there to use the pool. And he said yes. And she wasn't expecting him. And that was around noon. He told her he was at a doctor's appointment and told her he had damage on the back of his head and he may need surgery. He got lost. He was having trouble with numbers and he wasn't thinking well. They talked about his job in Florida and he said he wasn't going to get it because of his injury. She said he could go back to the insurance company and he said no. She said maybe he could talk to his parents and he said no, they're still up north. And he said they'll just be mad, and that was odd to her that they would be upset if he was hurt. How do you pronounce her name?
I think it's Dulce.
Okay.
Dulce.
Dulce.
I think it's Dulce. Dulce.
All right. So she showed up and started talking to Chandler, and he re-explained what was going on. Next, he got in his car to drive to where the pool was. And again, they talk about riding the lawnmower to tell Chandler they were going to swim, but he wasn't there. Again, they have a heated cover on the pool and it was still on. And they knew he hadn't been in. And again, at that point, Chandler wasn't in sight, but they happened to see him through the barn. She wondered what he was doing, so they went over to the car, but he wasn't there. They're confused, wondering what he's doing. And Kat's mom says she's upset, not knowing what he's up to. They decided to go get in the pool. Then they see him come out of the wooded area and walk towards them. He was wearing baggy shorts and no shirt, but he had a shirt on when he arrived. Tongue twister. She told him she didn't have a shirt on, and he said, if it's okay, I'd like to get in. I'm hot and sticky. She asked Kat's mom if he could get in, and she was hesitant, but he got in, and they got in opposite sides of the pool. He would dip up and down and would kind of wash himself, and said the walk was scratchy and he was itchy. He seemed different from when they talked to him at the first when he arrived. He was more lucid and present. Dulce was asking him questions because she worried he may have been doing drugs in the woods to see how he could respond. And Dulce had told her that he was acting weird before. And she said if he was doing drugs, that was a deal breaker. And he said he didn't do drugs. He gets out first that he was in a hurry because Kat was getting dinner, and he got in the car and left. So the time gap from when he left to go to the pool and when she saw him again coming out of the woods was about 45 minutes to an hour. Later that day, she found he had tried to contact her to come over from a message on her landline. They played the voicemail in the courtroom. Hi, this is Chandler. I just got back with some pretty terrible news from my doctor, so I was wondering if I could come by. I don't know, take a couple of laps in the pool or hang out. I'm not having the most ideal day, I suppose, so call me back. And he gives his number. Thank you, bye. That's just weird.
Yeah. I mean, it all fits now. He was scoping that place, or he probably had that place in mind because he had been there before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't think I could stay there after knowing what he did to that property. If I lived there, I would have a very hard time, even if that was my home. That's just me. But I know that Cress really loves that farm, and so does Kat's mom. That's you could tell. I mean,
Yeah.
it was so nice. She kept it in good shape, but man, he's put a mark on it, you know?
Yeah. So, the thing for me, it's stupid.
Yeah.
If you've killed your parents, why would you take them and dump them at your girlfriend's parents' house?
Yeah, I mean, well, dumb criminal and just doesn't know what he's doing because that was really um when she saw the vultures and
Yeah.
realized something's dead in those woods.
I
That
mean, here's
it's
here's 2 witnesses.
yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, people like that are bound to get caught. I can't wait to see the forensics in the house. I'm
Yeah.
sure his fingerprints are on these tools, everything. It's
Yeah.
gonna be I think it's gonna be massive when we
Well,
get
here's 2 witnesses that can say, "Oh, I saw his car parked at this
right, yeah,
area."
exactly. Yeah,
Oh, and then your dad's dismembered body is found there.
right.
Yeah. Um, so July 7th, she heard he was trying to come out again, and her phone was messed up, and she was stressed and didn't want to put up with anyone. Investigators and Crest found various items on her property, one being a Rubbermaid container found in the woods. She didn't put it there. In the big gas container, they found tools in there. She said he never puts tools in there. They show her a photo of her trash can with a Target bag in there. They show a photo of bloody rags in the bag and the rifle in the barn. She found the rifle in October of 2021 while organizing her barn. It was behind some boards stacked against the wall. She got a sick feeling and called the investigator who was heading the investigation into Bart and Krista's murders. And then in July, when Chandler was there, the barn wasn't locked. So on Cross, they asked, "Do you ever lock or close the barn?" And she said she hasn't for years. Uh, Before you got the garbage bin and cleaned the shed, you didn't know every item in there. And she said no. There was a delay in cleaning the barn because police were there. How long? She said a couple of weeks. The police had custody of her property and didn't let her inside the barn. And then back to July 4th weekend, you said he wasn't acting like himself, and you and Dulce thought he may be on drugs, and she said it was a theory.
Yeah. So, it was kinda interesting to hear their take on it. So the next witness was, Brent Baberstock. He's a detective with the Dane County Sheriff. So shortly before noon on July 8th, now July 8th is the day that Chandler was arrested that evening for the murders, but another detective came to him and said that Kat's mom had called and some things alerted her, so they needed to talk to her in person. And they asked him to come over and talk to them. So they said that Kat's mom had fear and panic in her eyes. Based on interviews, they went to the farm to search it. So the detective said red flags popped up in talking to Kat's mom and Cress. So he asked for help to search the farm to get other investigators there. When he got there, nobody was there. So he went into the grassy area looking for Cass and Kat's mom, and he noticed vultures over the woods. Cress saw them too and had told him in the interview that she was seeing these vultures. So the investigator explained that when something living dies, these are turkey vultures. They can smell a dead body and they will circle in the air to find it. So Cress came out the door at the house and he asked her to show where she saw Chandler in the woods. So she did. And when he got to where Chandler was seen, they noticed it looked like a car had driven through that tall grass. So he began following those tracks over to the tree line. And they show photos of the property and then the tire tracks in the tall grass on the big screen. So he followed the tire marks, and when the marks stopped, there's an area of depressed grass, and he said in all directions headed towards the woods. So they walk into the woods, and you see pictures of thick vegetation. Some of it was trampled down, though. And beyond a log, they saw a pile of sticks, and he said it just looked unnatural. And right away, he couldn't tell what was under that log. So he got closer and still couldn't tell what it was. And he said it just took him a minute to process it. And then it became obvious it was a torso. And I'm going to tell you, watching this detective testify, you really see that this affected him. And I'm sure
Yeah.
every murder scene affects people who work this stuff every day. But, I think there are probably certain cases that stick with you more than others. And I would think seeing a mutilated human body would be one.
Yeah, it bothered him, you could tell.
And they showed the pictures of the torso. It was gross. And I immediately thought about the Vallow Daybell case, and that this is things that we're going to hear about when that goes to trial, because that's what they did to poor Tylee.
Yeah.
So in the picture, you could just see it was very identifiable as a torso. The pants were still on. They were cut, just at the legs, but the belt was still fastened. And there was a black rope that was kind of long. It wasn't a thick rope. It was attached to the torso. I'm assuming he drug it. And they show a picture of a black plastic garbage can on its side. And that's where they found the tarp that had Bart and Krista's blood on it, eventually, when they tested it. So the torso, the arms were severed high up at the shoulder. The head was gone. And they show a close-up wound of the gunshot, and it was right in the center of the back. Under the torso was a black T-shirt that was covered with maggots. And I'm going to tell you, as they sat showing these pictures of this torso, Chandler looked at those pictures with zero emotion. No emotion.
Yeah, we talked about it on yesterday, that the judge gave he was given instructions to the jury. If you look away, make sure when the prosecution or whoever tells you there's a new picture, you look back at the screen.
I mean, they have to look at this stuff. This is, and I haven't read anybody that's in the courtroom yet. I'm curious to see the jury's reaction, although it's usually pretty predictable in that people look upset or,
Yeah.
You going to do this next one?
Yep. So, Detective Sabrina Sims, she was the next witness. They sent a subpoena for Chandler's medical records. They got the report for when he was seen in the ER, and none for follow-up appointments because he didn't go. She reads from the report. CTs taken were negative. Still complained of tenderness. He was diagnosed with a mild concussion. He was to follow up in 4 to 6 weeks later with another CT of his spine. He was sent home with Zofran. So on cross, she asked where the subpoena was sent. They sent no other subpoenas to any other facilities. So that was it for that witness.
Yeah, it was really quick. She was just the one that actually filled out the subpoena.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep going with this?
That's fine. So Dr. Lohmeyer treated Chandler in the ER. He saw him around noon on the 27th. He complained of head pain and right ribs after a fall down the stairs. An attending physician saw him. Like they said, they got CTs of his head and spine. They were negative with no abnormalities. He had a physical exam and offered an x-ray of the ribs, and Chandler said no. There's no specific test for concussions. It's a rule-out diagnosis after looking for skull fractures and trauma. To be diagnosed with a concussion, you need certain symptoms, light sensitivity, nausea, etc. There's self-reporting symptoms. The care plan was for him to manage with Tylenol or a prescription for nausea. Chandler had residual neck pain, and given the neck brace, which is not unusual for a patient complaining of a neck injury. Guys, I'm telling you, those things are so uncomfortable.
I had to wear one time after I was in a fender bender, and I ditched it before I even got home, I think.
I remember, I had to be boarded because I was in that bad wreck. And when I got to the hospital, I had to stay in that thing and lay there. And when they said, okay, we x-rayed you, we can take this off now, I was like, thank you, Jesus. Woo. So they told him to follow up if he continued to have pain within 4 to 6 weeks. He was not told he had to wear the neck brace. He was never told he would have any of the problems he told people. Example, like brain bleeds, paralysis, brain aneurysms, nerve damage, spinal injury. He was never told he shouldn't fly in a plane or drive. Nothing about a hematoma, inability to use legs normally, a colostomy. They never drilled a hole in his head he didn't have surgery. He was diagnosed with a mild concussion.
It reminds me of like Murdoch. Yeah, skull fracture, entry exit wound.
Yeah, liar, liar. So on cross, they ask, you did diagnose him with a mild concussion, and you can diagnose even if the images are negative. When you diagnose close in time to the injury, symptoms can improve or get worse in time. So when they leave the ER, they can get more symptoms. I've dealt with concussions, and I mean, the ones I've dealt with, like, like they immediately have.
Oh, yeah. I had a nasty concussion when I was in my 20s and thought I was still young enough to ride a skateboard, and I hit a rock and my head hit the cement, and it's no joke.
No, no, it's like serious. Like you're in a darker, like it's big time.
Yeah.
Um, so the instructions he was given had things to look for: blurred vision, increasing headaches, weaknesses in extremities. You wouldn't know unless he reported back to you. And the doctor said he said it was correct. You would say avoid bright lights, screens, video games. One treatment is to sit in a darkened room, and the doc said rest is best. As a result of the visit, you gave him nausea meds because he said he was nauseous. And that's typical. If you tell them in the ER you're nauseated, they'll give you something for nausea.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you prove you're nauseated?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I
You
mean,
know
it's
what I
just one
mean?
of those things. I mean, you're not going to get high on nausea medicine. People that
No.
go into the ER asking for certain pain meds, it's a different story. But nausea is kind of one of those things that might make you sleep, but you can get that with some Benadryl if you're that hard up.
Yeah. So the next thing, when someone reports a headache, there's no test that can confirm what the patient is telling you. I mean, they can't confirm you have a headache. When he presented in the ER, what does it mean? And PT has cervical spine tenderness, palpitations when he pressed on it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sorry. PT, it's patient. That's kind of one of my old stupid medical abbreviations I didn't even think about. Sorry.
He said with the tenderness, they recommend the collar for safety. They didn't tell him how long to wear it. And then there was a on redirect here. If the patient lies, is it useful if it's a lie? And he said, I tend to take my patients at their word, but I assume it's true.
Yeah. So essentially, yeah. I mean, the defense is like, well, you really don't know if he didn't have a concussion. And there were a couple of times that the doctor grinned when they're going through that long list, that now that he has a concussion, he may have to have a colostomy bag. I mean, it's just, he kind of a couple of times you could see it was comical in theory to him because, nobody who's ever had a concussion. I mean, maybe if you like crack your coconut wide open and damage your brain, but.
Okay, here's the deal. What is the big thing with a concussion? Are they going to try to say that he had a concussion and it caused him to do these things? Like, where are you going with a concussion?
Look, here's the thing. They don't have another defense, I don't think. And I'm not knocking his defense attorneys. They have done as good of a job as they can with what they've been dealt. They're not, how some defense attorneys can be really annoying and it's just kind of like give it up.
Yeah.
They've been very reserved, but that's the only defense, even though I think he's pled not guilty. So they're never going to put him on the stand or, they're not going to admit he did it because they're going for a not guilty, but I don't know. So the next witness was Chandler's girlfriend, Kat. And I felt so bad for her. She was very soft spoken. You would see her cut her eyes over at Chandler a few times. You could see she was embarrassed by some stuff that she believed in hindsight. And I just felt terrible for her. She said they started dating in August of 2019 and they had met through a friend. At the time, he was supposedly attending college and lived at home, about to move into an apartment. He would dog sit sometimes, and she was in school. She is a pharmacy technician. They would grab dinner, walk a lot, play with the dog, start shows together to binge. She said most of the time they would communicate on Snapchat or FaceTime. They would call sometimes, and we learned sometimes it's all three, interchangeably. She knows his brother Mitchell, and they would hang out at family events. She was at the family home often, and Bart would show her fishing tips, and Bart and Krista would help her cook, and they would play Mario Kart together, and she broke down. Very sincerely, just seems very devastated that they're dead. And obviously, that Chandler did it. She said her relationship with Krista was good. They texted back and forth a lot about recipes or talking about wanting to do a girls' trip to Disneyland together. And she said she loved them a lot. So in June, she was at the home and went into the basement to get ice cream and sodas to make ice cream floats, and the stuff was in a freezer. She said they had a chest freezer and then a tall freezer that kind of looked like a refrigerator. So she went into the chest freezer and she said it just had, food in it and ice bags. And she said it was full of stuff and the other freezer was full as well. And with Chandler, there was discussions about money. And she said it was important to her that he had a job because she wanted to be with somebody who was self-sufficient. And as far as she knew, from 2020 to 21, she thought Chandler was in college. He had told her he was taking online classes for an IT degree. And he talked a lot about school. And she said he showed her some of the coding he was doing. She never saw any grades or transcripts. And he told her that he was one class away from graduating. She also was told by Chandler that he did the scuba diving for the DNR. And she said she was told it was a paying job and he did this mainly during summers. And as far as she knew, he would go out to the job telling her he had to be on call and he couldn't hang out. But she never saw any kind of diving equipment or anything. She also believed the insurance job was a real thing. And he had told her it was an internship to help him graduate. And that he told her it was a paid internship. And he actually showed her this plan on this whiteboard in his room where he was drawing up for this job. And she had been told the same thing, that he was having problems getting his pay. And she said it seemed like he never had money and that she would often pay for their food and things like that. And she never saw any documentation of this job at all. She was told about the SpaceX job. On May 30th of 2020, he said, I have a good feeling, or 2021, he said, I have a good feeling about SpaceX. And she says, I'm proud of you. He says, thanks. I hope I get the job. And she says, me too. She hoped he got the job because he was excited and it was a lot of pay. And he had told her it would be at least $80,000 a year. And so Chandler says, I'll be happy. And she says, I'll be happy too. You get the money and the job you want. So they're talking about money and moving to Florida. And she said, maybe they'll transfer you in a couple of years. I think maybe she was hoping they would come back to where they were. I don't know. She did intend to move with him to Florida. May 24th, he texted that he had a follow-up interview for this SpaceX job tomorrow. And on the 25th, she says, tell me what's going on. And Chandler says, shoot, I'm sorry, I got the job. And she congratulates him. So they discuss the job. He tells her he has training the next week over the computer and then leaves June 11th for Florida and starts that job June the 14th. And she was going to have to wait a couple of weeks before she moved. And Chandler says, I'll come back every other weekend, hun, and I can send you money until your lease is up and you move in with me if you're positive you want to be with me for the long run. Because if you're not, then I don't think you should. So they talked about the move a lot and she was excited. She had told her friends and family about it. And they were looking at these homes down in Titusville. And so she was FaceTiming Chandler at the time they were doing this. And she had taken screenshots of Chandler, like you could see him in the corner looking at these really expensive homes. One of them was almost $700,000. And you see Chandler in that screenshot as she's browsing. And she was telling her family that they were moving. And she would go after the lease was up for her at the end of August. And she was telling her friends, hey, you'll have to come and we'll go to Disney. And she was going so far as to look for pharmacy schools in Florida. And they talked about the car situation. And about the time the job was to start, this is when Mitchell got sick with diabetes and went into the hospital. He had high sugar levels, as you are all too familiar with that, Fruit Loop. And he was in a couple of days and they got him straightened out. But Chandler said he did not want to leave with Mitchell sick. And then, of course, Chandler had the fall. He told her he was running and slipped down the stairs and hit his head. So he told her he had tingling in his legs, sensitivity to light, severe headaches, limb weakness, that kind of thing. And she said he told her he wasn't going to be able to do normal things such as lifting, and he would get lightheaded easy, said he couldn't drive long distances and that sort of thing. There's a picture of Chandler in the ER Then they show the picture of Chandler, Bart, and Mitch on Father's Day, and then one more of Chandler in the neck collar. And he told her he had rented a 2-bedroom apartment and had already put a down payment on it, and said that there was a dog park right near there, and he sent her a link. So they start going through June 30th with some text. So why don't you pick up here?
So Kat sent a text. To be honest, it's getting to the point where I want to text your mom directly. When asked what this meant, she said Chandler told her he was grounded and couldn't see her.
Which was weird. He's 23.
Yeah.
And I mean,
well, you heard her testimony that she had a good relationship with him, it sounded like.
Yeah, for me, I just think this is something he made up for some reason to where he wouldn't have to be with her. I don't know.
Yeah. She only heard that from Chandler. He responds, "It's fine." But that
I
will
be there because they call each other B, and I didn't know what it meant, so I quit putting it in there. But she said it's fine, B.
That'll tick them off more. This weekend will be great. That weekend was July 4th weekend. She responds, "Okay," and he replies, "Thanks, though." Kat texts, "We're not going to the cabin, right?" Chandler says no. When asked how this came up, she said Chandler told her Bart and Krista were going to the cabin. Kat says, "I can ask if we can go to the farm. That way we can say my mom can care for you since they have a lot of stuff there they use for Mike and Papa." When asked what kind of stuff she meant, she said a walker and things like that. When asked if she thought he would be assisted by those things, she pauses a long time and says no. The prosecutor asked why she said that then, and she said Krista was worried about his injuries, and she thought it would help her to allow him to come hang out with her. July 1st, she worked that day. They show her copies of her Snapchat messages from that day. His username was Chazzle Dazzle. Oh, my word. What the world? Snapchat deletes messages, but you can change it to delete every 24 hours. On July 1st at 7:11, she gets a message from Chandler. He asks how she slept, and she said good. He says, "I hardly slept." She said, "I'm sorry, B, why?" And he said, "I don't know. Stuff hasn't really been going well for me lately. I'm trying to plan for the next thing to F me over." She says it's going to be okay. And he said, "Yeah, I just had a great future planned and it's falling apart." She says it's not. "You're going to be okay. You're going to go to Florida. You even said it's probably just a brace." He says, "Thanks." And she says, "Of course, I'm here to keep your booty in check." You look at that, and I mean, he says his world's falling apart. He didn't have anything.
He had nothing.
Like, he was lying about everything.
He's upset that he's lost a fake job from a fake injury.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
He just sits there in the courtroom, totally emotionless. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, psychopath.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, to mutilate, to dismember somebody, that is a step further than even like a crime of passion where you kill somebody in the heat of the moment. You know what I'm saying? It takes time and effort to dismember a body, as we know. I mean, not that we know, but we've heard in other cases, this is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. Well, we know that on Chad's property that Tylee, they finally gave up. That's why there was stuff left, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then they had tried to burn her remains, and then he did the heads in the fireplace. But again, I think he found it's not easy. There's always stuff left. And I mean, not that it would freak out somebody who will kill and dismember somebody, but when you throw human remains on a fire that have flesh and muscle, they move. It's creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. So at 7:55 a.m., Chandler says, "Would you leave me even if it doesn't work?" Worded bad, but you understand. She says, "No, I wouldn't." He says, "I won't stop trying." She said, "Florida would be so dope, but I'm not dating you for money. I love you tons." He says, I love you a ton too. By the way, I'm not giving up. I'm just worried. And she replies, don't be worried, love. It'll work out. He responds, thank you.
Yeah. So at 8:30 a.m., Chandler says, you helped me a ton. And she says, I'm glad. Later in the day, they switched to texting. So Kat texts Chandler at 1:02 p.m. Sorry, I forgot to tell you, but mom did okay you hanging out with us all weekend. And Chandler says, that's awesome. And she responds, yes, so convince your parents hard. She said because he was grounded is why she said to convince them. At 1:03, Chandler says, I overheard they might go to the cabin with their friends, but I don't know. She got off work at 5 o'clock and he asked if they would FaceTime while in the shower. And she said yes. And he asks if the prosecutor asked if she took screenshots while he was in the shower. And she said they did. That night, she didn't have plans to hang out. And around 6:30, he says, baby, I need you. Now, remember, they think between 3 and 5 is when the murders happen. So he's already murdered his parents at this point. He says, baby, I need you. Later, there's discussion of him looking at her location on Snapchat, and he was wondering where she was. As far as what he said he was doing, he said he would be taking care of the dogs and making dinner. He told her that Bart and Krista were doing a grocery pickup. The prosecutor shows her pictures of Chandler carrying the bags of ice in the convenience store and asks if that physical activity was not consistent with what he told her he could do, and she said it's not consistent. So on July 2nd, she worked and messaged Chandler kind of off and on throughout the day. And after work, she had to stop by Target to get groceries, and then she had to go by her mom's. So she was going to spend the night with Chandler that night, and she was excited because she said he had been grounded for 2 weeks. So, at Target, they put a sticker on your bag if you're doing curbside pickup, and it has your first initial, your last name, and the time. So Chandler texts back, don't rush. I have tons of chores they are having me do. So they go back and forth about what to have for dinner. And she said it depends on how long they're going to see each other. So Chandler says we can do dinner tonight and you come over in the morning and stay again till Sunday night. Then he says like dinner plus the sex. So you think about this. He has murdered his parents. This is the next day. So he's probably mutilated them and put their remains on ice in these freezers. And he's thinking about sex. Yeah. So I think we're going to stop here. This was a long day of testimony. So we're going to break this into 2 episodes. And then over the weekend, we'll get caught up with today's testimony. So we're going to stop here because we're already over 40 minutes. So we appreciate you guys. If you are interested in stuff like this and you don't have time to watch, that's why we're here. We're giving you the best parts of this testimony. So we'll be back at some point in the next day or so, and we will catch up on all this. Have a good evening.